Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations with Cohen. As you know, this season I'm going deep into law firms, trying to help administrators, managing partners, all the folks who run law firms solve for the problems that they're encountering at the moment. Top and center of that list is working remote and helping people with regards to their technology. So today, as you know, I'm bringing forward subject matter experts to talk about the problems that law firms are having. So today I've got with me Peter Fidler of WCA Technologies. As we like to start on Conversations with Cohen, Peter, if you'd introduce yourself to everyone, please.
Sure. Thank you, Greg. I'm Peter Fidler. I'm president and founder of WCA Technologies. We're a boutique consulting firm located on 40th and Broadway. I'm a native New Yorker, been here all my life, and we are supporting law firms, not-for-profits, financial firms for over 33 years.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. So we're talking about law firm problems, technology front and center when we're talking about working remotely, right? So that seems to be topic du jour. And I think first and foremost is the integrity of data, all of that information that lives within a law firm, from proprietary client information to the conversations that are held between attorneys and their clients. So hoping you can help us understand how law firms can secure all of that data to maintain the integrity of it, and also make sure there's no slippage or leakage of that.
So that is a great question, Greg. You know, we've been working with a lot of our law firms, and the ones that have been making more investments in technology and equipment have been most successful. And what does that mean? That means that instead of a partner or an associate or even a paralegal working on their own computer, they're working on the firm's computer. And what that does is it actually extends the firewall, the protections that protect you inside the office now can protect you outside the office. So now you're working within the software and hardware stack that is supported by the firm. And what it does is it does a couple of things. One is it makes your computing experience very secure. The second thing is it makes sure that the data of the firm sort of stays within the firm. So you're not working on a personal laptop or sending emails on a personal laptop. Everything is happening on a firm laptop or piece of equipment.
What's been the hesitation or the concern for adopting that?
So the concern is for some firms is, and there's really been a debate about the BYOD, which is bring your own device. And there are certain ways you can do it successfully and ways you can't do it successfully. If you do it successfully, you need to have the lawyers work within what I'll call a sandbox environment, so to segregate it from the rest of the house. But a lot of firms are not making that investment, or they're very hesitant to make that investment, and they just say, use whatever you want, and as long as you get your work done, you put your time entries in, we're happy. The danger is once a firm, allows an attorney or associate or a paralegal to work like this, now you have something called data leakage. So now your data is all over the place. It's on that local laptop. If you don't control it, there's other areas. Lawyers will do anything possible to get their work done. So if that means installing another piece of software or another cloud technology like a Dropbox or something that is what I'll call non-firm sponsored, they'll try to do it. And then what happens is now you have your data on a local laptop. Now you have your data in Dropbox. And when you're going back to the office, now you have to sort of go around like a garbage collector and say, okay, bring your laptop in. Let me see what you have on there. And that's when you notice that they used a Dropbox, they use some other cloud technology, maybe an ancillary email platform. And now their data needs to be sort of rediscovered and put back into place.
So if I'm running a firm, is it right to say that I should have a sort of standard set of protocols in place? I'm just trying to think about, okay, so it sounds like there's a risk there. It sounds like there's an opportunity for data to be everywhere, and I can't control it as the law firm. So how do I go about getting a set of protocols in place? Like where do I start?
So it's all start with standards and create standards, whether it's a standard laptop or standard software stack, and say, here are the approved hardware, software, and protocols. And what I mean by protocols is how people attach to the Office system. And that means you need to be behind a firewall. And the firewall can be either software or hardware, but you need to have something that segments the attorney at home from the rest of the family. The student who's doing his homework or downloading YouTube or whatever else. And what if that person got a virus? What if that person got something infected on their home network? And now you're putting that laptop at risk unless it has the proper protocols in place.
So Peter, just sorry to interrupt, but so let's play that out. So I'm thinking about it. Okay, that sounds like protocols in place that make sense, but doesn't that cost money? So if it does, I'm trying to understand what my downside is. So I've got one of my attorneys who's working from home. He's working on the family laptop, and one of the documents gets a virus. So how does that put me at risk? How does that put my firm at risk?
So it really depends on the virus. So if it's a virus that will encrypt the laptop, then you have ransomware on that laptop. So now the attorney doesn't have access to that laptop. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and the way ransomware works is it not only encrypts it, but it also will take that data and put it on the dark web. So now you have all whatever's located on that laptop is now on the dark web. So you're sort of violating client attorney privilege information because those documents, whether you worked on it in a Word document, Excel spreadsheet, PowerPoint, or even open an email. You open an email that actually will open that document, put that file in a temporary spot. And unless you delete your temporary files, that file is going to still be there. So all that data is at risk. The investment is minimal. The investment is software that will protect the laptop. There's antivirus that will protect the laptop. There's firewall information that will, software that will protect the laptop. And I always joke, I was trying to, come up with a name for, what do all these tools cost? And, the cost of these tools are the same as what it would cost for dinner for two. Just have dinner for two out, and that's your monthly cost per attorney. So it's not thousands of dollars. It's probably around $150 a month. But what you're doing is you're protecting your firm's data, and you're ensuring that your client's data is being protected also.
So let's just play that out further. Have we actually ever seen? Have we ever seen the integrity of a whole firm be impacted by this? Because it sounds like if I'm sitting on the other end of this recording and I'm listening, I'm thinking, okay, you know what? Maybe somebody's trying to sell me something. Like I'm trying to think about what's the real world implications of this? Have we ever seen this in live time impact a whole firm?
Yes. So a lot of law firms will not publicize this. It's not part. They'll sort of keep it quiet, sweep it under the rug to keep it just out of the press. But there's a very large firm, DLL Piper. This happened to a number of years ago, where it actually shut the firm down for probably a week and a half. So nobody could log in. When attorneys went to the lobby of the hotel, they said, make sure you don't log into your laptop. So work stopped for a week and a half. And, it's embarrassing for a law firm. And it impacted DLL Piper because, they're sort of a, world-renowned firm. But the smaller firms, it's not going to, from a publicity standpoint, not hurt them. So a lot of these things sort of go unreported or underreported because it's embarrassing for a firm for this to happen to.
Well, also it sounds like the not only the credibility but also the concern from the client base of if the integrity of their data, if it could end up somewhere where they just it shouldn't end up in the hands of people who it shouldn't end up in. So I understand why it doesn't make the press, right? It's not only embarrassing, but there's also reputational risk.
Absolutely.
And therefore potential loss of market share and clients.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So thinking about it, practically, right? So practically, if this all makes sense to somebody and they want to get started in this regard, where do they start? What do they do first? And they don't have let's say they don't have a CTO, right? There's a firm run by lawyers who they don't have they probably outsource their technology. What are the questions they should ask to make sure that they're covered? And what should they do practically as the first 2 or 3 steps, just to sort of make a step-by-step process for somebody who gets overwhelmed by technology? They say, oh, I'm not technologically savvy, so I just don't know what to do.
I mean, the first thing you need to do is really take an inventory of what you have, what your resources are, and you do that throughout the entire firm. The second thing, and this will require a professional to come in, is actually do an assessment. And you do an assessment and you see where the gaps are. And the gaps may be on the type of hardware or the policies and procedures of an organization. So it's not only from a technology standpoint, but it's also policies and procedures and written guidelines of how lawyers are supposed to work. Because the worst thing you can have is a lawyer saying, I didn't know that, I wasn't aware of that. But if they're hard-coded policies and procedures, when an attorney is onboarded into the firm, here are the policies and procedures, this is how the firm works, this is how you're supposed to work within the organization, and you have them sign off on it. So that way the policies and procedures are in place. Once you have those policies and procedures and the gap, you do the gap analysis, then what you do is you make business decisions based on the gaps. What is this going to cost me to close the gaps? And what can I do now? And what can be put off later? So, and that is going to be dictated by budget and business decisions. So when I'm talking to a law firm about what they need from a technology standpoint, I say, here's what you need. Let's come up with the priorities. Let's put up a budget and let's find out what you could do this year, next year, and the year after. A lot of things are very simple, sort of low-hanging fruit, like training your attorneys. A lot of cyber insurance companies out there requiring, that people have cyber training, some type of cyber training. So if they get a particular type of email or a text message or something else, that they know what to do, they know what the protocol is. So a lot of it is training, and training is really not that expensive. Again, it's going to cost a whole lot less than a dinner for two.
Right. And it sounds like it's also going to cost a whole hell of a lot less than trying to clean up the mess afterwards.
Yes. I mean, once you have ransomware, it's a nightmare, because now you have to look at your backups. There are all sorts of things you have to look at. And then you have to make sure that you find out where it came from.
Um, as I'm sitting here and we're talking, I'm also thinking about not only the integrity of the data that is exchanged between parties, client and attorney, but I think about communications. I mean, here we're so fortunate to be able to be in two separate offices, be able to talk to each other. But can you? So this is really twofold. One, from the client attorney perspective, and two, from the culture perspective of an organization, whether that be senior attorney and more junior attorney, or just sort of that collegial atmosphere. And I'm going to go deep on sort of culture and figuring in another episode, thinking about how we can improve upon and foster culture in a remote work environment. But from speaking with you, Peter, can you talk about communications and technology, please?
Sure. So, I mean, one of the benefits of this of what we're going through right now is the sort of the acceptance of Zoom calls or Teams calls or whatever you want to call it. So the video conferencing. So, from a productivity standpoint, you could be much more productive because you're not traveling to a client. You're not traveling, if it's in the city, it's 20 minutes, a half hour, an hour, one way or both ways. So there's a whole lot of productivity improvements as a result of the technologies involved. So you can basically do everything you want to do from home. And you want to schedule a meeting, you could do it. You could see the person, you could see their facial expression. In terms of protocols, you always want to have your camera on. You want to be able to look into the client or colleague's eyes.
But is there risk? Is there risk to?
Not so much.
Is it something that I should be concerned about running a firm with regards to the communication and the information that's exchanged between parties?
So from a video conferencing standpoint, whatever you're doing, you want to make sure is captured and logged. So if you've standardized on Zoom, let's say, you want to be able to have an administrator go in and capture that time and make sure that who you're meeting with is client related. I mean, if it's from a compliance standpoint, you want every call to be recorded, so you don't want to lose that. So you can lock down the settings, excuse me, on Zoom and Teams to make sure that every correspondence or video chat is recorded. And that way you have a record of that. Because the worst thing is the he said, she said, or they said, depending on how you want to state it now, where you had a meeting, you annotated the meeting, but now you sort of have that video backup for that.
Right.
So that's great. So anything that will capture the video, capture what was said, and be able to you save it, catalog it, and then it becomes a record of the firm.
Let me ask you this. So one, if I was a client, right, what should I be asking my law firm about what they have with regards to the technology? What's the right question to ask to make sure that the integrity of the data is safe? Like, what's that question that you ask? I'm just trying to put it on a plate for somebody.
So if I was a client coming into a law firm and I want to make sure my data is in place, I would ask for their policies and procedures as it relates to data security.
Okay.
And just to make sure that, because if they look at you and go, I don't know what you're talking about, that means it wasn't even part of their culture at all. It wasn't even part of the conversation. So that's the first thing I would ask.
Yep.
But I'm coming from a technology standpoint, so a lot of people don't understand that. Well, the second thing I would say is how are you protecting my data? How are you making sure that my data doesn't end up in the wrong hands? How are you backing up my data? Where is your data stored? Is it in a SOC 2 compliant environment, where somebody comes in and audits all your policies and procedures to make sure that your data center is safe and secure? Is it in the cloud? What protections do you have in the cloud? So you want to know how a firm would be protecting your data.
And so, Peter, just as we come to the end here, just you're on the front lines as such of technology, and law firms are such a large client base for you. What are the other things that that are keeping law firms up at night right now with regards to technology?
So I would say ransomware is probably the biggest thing, because what happens is lawyers talk to other lawyers. They're not going to implement a technology unless some other law firm is doing it. It's sort of a copycat scenario. So if a law firm says they have ransomware, they're going to start to ask questions about it. They want to make sure they protect their client data. They want to protect their firm's money. And there have been certain instances where somebody's email has been commandeered and asked for wiring instructions, and for a number of firms have lost money as a result of that. And I'm not talking about like 5,000. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it does happen. These cyber criminals are out there to make money. They want to make money and make a lot of it. Bitcoin is just taken off as a result of that, and a lot of it is for bad reasons. So that's what is my client data, ransomware, and protecting the funds of the organization.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Let listeners know, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So we're listed on the internet. We're WCATech.com, or you can reach out to me personally. It's P Fidler. It's Fidler at WCATech.com. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter. We're on all the major platforms, and we, you should catch my article on dark web technologies and shadow IT. I've had a couple of things out there that will find you'll find very interesting.
Well, I'll make sure to put that links to that in the show notes, as well as your contact details. That's it from us. I'm Greg Cohen. This has been Conversations with Cohen. Peter Fidler, thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.